Let's have a lesson on this Andante by Mertz. If you have this in another book, just follow along with the video and pick up some tips about how to approach this piece or any piece in this style. But if you need the music, it's part of my Vol.2 Easy Classical Guitar collection, so there's a link for that underneath the video. So this piece is a little bit more complex than the previous Mertz piece, which was kind of a nice, easy arpeggio work. This one has a lot of things going on. It has a really clear melody to bring out. It also has a pretty active little bass line and a whole bunch of accompaniment as well. It also has a number of places where there's opportunities for accents and where non-chord tones kind of like really pick up the harmonic tension in the piece. So I think we can talk about all those things. First thing, let's just talk about a little bit about the melody, and then a little bit about right hand fingering, and then I'll do a walkthrough of the piece. So the melody is in top voice, pretty straightforward and clear. You know, that upper voice, that upper musical line with stems up in the notation, that's the melody, and you want to make sure that that melody comes out. The first three notes are just E's, so I really highly recommend that you shape it a little bit. So you ease into it, and then grow all the way to there. That way that you don't just have like E, 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 F, but instead you have something that feels like it's going somewhere, it's growing. That'll give the phrase a little bit of forward momentum and won't make it too static, which would otherwise be. As soon as the melody becomes static and it's not shaped, it has a tendency to start sounding like you're just playing arpeggios and just playing chords. So you want to make sure you bring that melody out and that you shape it so it has direction. It has direction to the line or momentum towards a destination. So you could go through and practice the melody on its own through the whole piece. But let's talk a little bit about right hand fingering. It's pretty straightforward in this piece, actually. It might seem complicated at first when you see my right hand fingering. I just included it on the first 3 bars, but it looks pretty intense, but it's very clear because it's kind of regulated to the different strings. So I, M, and A are essentially on the top 3 strings, and then the thumb is taking care of the bass. So there'll just be lots of like repeated A fingers, and then in between those there'll be an I finger. So it's always alternating, but it's regulated. Like the A finger often has the melody, the I finger is usually the accompaniment, so it should be soft, and then the thumb is the bass, and it can be fairly present. But essentially we want melody, bass, and accompaniment in terms of volume, right? Melody to come out the most, bass pretty present, so you have a cushion of sound, and then accompaniment should be pretty soft. Along with some musical shaping, like crescendoing through that first line. That's pretty much it. I'll do a walk through the piece now, and we'll talk about some other musical things, but it's pretty easy to approach. It's a very active piece, but nevertheless not too difficult. One thing I'll say before we start is make sure your hand is well aligned for this piece. If your hand is like this, all these C sharps with the 4th finger are going to be weird. You'll have to like reach out to them or like jump to them. You don't want that. This piece is really easy if your left hand is nicely aligned. It's very difficult if it's misaligned though, because you'll be having to reach out all the time. So take this knuckle and bring it up like this so that the 4th finger is hovering there. As soon as I start pushing that knuckle away, look at my 4th finger. It just gets further and further away from the actual frets that it's going to play. So when it's back like that, it can't even reach those frets. When it's in line, it's right there. I can even have my finger nicely curved. See, it always just needs to be ready to play, so just don't let it drift away too much. Same thing when you go up to the 3rd position there, just move your whole hand up, including your thumb. So make sure your thumb moves with your hand. And then your fourth finger should be right in place to play that note. Okay, so from bar 9, we still have a melody in the top voice. Just make sure that when you're playing the IMs that the I isn't too loud. You want to make sure the M finger does come out and brings that B out. You don't want the I finger to be overpowering, so it's kind of tough when you have two fingers to bring out one more, much more. But just think of it as a deeper follow through in that finger. If you think about pressure, it's really hard to delineate pressure between the two fingers. But if you just think in terms of like a deeper follow through towards the palm, you'll be able to bring that finger out probably much more easily. I like to do a little accent on that bar 10. Kind of works as like a non-chord tone there, resolving to there. I also like to do it there. It's a juicy thing, like it sounds surprising, so you might as well capitalize on that and like bring it out, but make sure that you resolve it right afterwards. I'd pretty much just do PI through there. Since I's been regulated to the inner voice so much in this piece, I just keep it there. Bar 17 is just a return of the beginning. If you're going at a faster tempo, you could slur that last figure. 2 to 3. At slower tempos, I just play both of them with my thumb just to keep it as even as possible. But at faster tempos, you might want to slur some of that. So just to review what we said, practice the melody on its own. Make sure you're bringing that melody out, usually in the A finger, but then in the M finger when we get to bar 9. But then look for opportunities for shaping and phrasing and adding those kinds of musical ideas, as well as keeping the accompaniment soft and little areas where you get to accent and then hold off a little bit. I love all those. Makes it sound very dramatic, right? So not that hard of a piece. When you first approach the piece, it might feel like it's a bit of a handful and there's lots of requirements for your left hand, but that's just good basic habit stuff. So keep your basics in, aligned and maintained in your head, and then you should be able to play the piece pretty easily.